allows to appear. It's amazing. It's a big thing for them. Group that we're talking about group income. Great stuff up here. And just so folks know, the forum is going to be groups will present on what they've done, and there'll be time for a few brief questions. Okay, thank you. My slides on here. This is switched over. Okay, so to start with, people are valuable, and markets sometimes don't recognize this. Even though people create different kinds of value, not all value is monetizable. And this is a core idea behind our project. An example of some non-monetizable value is everybody's familiar, everybody has a mother. And it would be a horrible thing if mothers had to suddenly monetize their mother. Nobody would really even want that. So we have a problem in that today people are profiting off of somebody else's value, and they're not getting back. So a next example of this could be open source software. There are lots of developers out there who are creating free open source software that's then being taken by others who are able to put a nice fancy user interface on it, throw it into an app store, profit off of it, and not send any of that back to the people who are working on it. An example of this is that, for example, the developer of GPG, the most popular email encryption software on the internet, was nearly homeless because he spent all his time focusing on the security level details and not the user interface level details. The other critical piece of software that was going neglected was OpenSSL, which protects the security of the entire internet. And there are many other such tools that society can be benefiting from, but we're not compensating people for that value that they're creating, and yet we're benefiting from it. Another issue is that we today are not letting people reach their full potential because in many situations, people are working at companies somewhat in fear. You probably hear lots of people say that, "Oh, I'm afraid of losing my job," and that's a real problem when you've got somebody working for your company who doesn't really want to be there. They don't really enjoy doing the work that they're doing, and they're just purely out of fear. When they could be off inventing a new kind of physics or something like that to help us reach that Star Trek future that many people in the basic income community envision. We're also encouraging people to lie, cheat, steal, and worry instead of innovate, because they have basic survival needs, and we've structured our economy in such a way that we say that only these people who are, for whatever reason, lucky enough to be able to monetize their value can actually afford these basic human needs, such as food and shelter. And so it's somewhat understandable, when you have crime. And in fact, we know from studies that in the places where basic income is actually given, crime goes down. So we recognize that everybody is valuable. And there are lots of people out there like this. And so groups want to be able to recognize this fact. And how can they do this? Group income is a voluntary, automated, decentralized open sharing technology. It's a tool for solving this problem. And the way that it works is, a simple overview here. Is that some people are, for whatever reason, able to monetize the value that they create. Some people aren't. They provide some other kind of value. And they sign up with group income. And they tell people to take the income sources and send it through this code, which tries to guarantee some minimum amount to everybody else. And anything above that minimum amount goes back to the generator. So that's like a very basic overview. We'll go into more detail in a bit. Well, that's what we discovered. So I want to spend a few seconds here talking about this concept of volume, which I think is very important. And while chatting with people here, I had a few epiphanies. So one of the primary arguments that basic income advocates give for wanting to just give people money instead of food stamps is that people make better decisions about what they can do with their money than the state can make for them. For example, they might have their food concerns down fine, but they might, for whatever reason, need to repair their house that just got broken down by some natural disaster. And yet, a state-based basic income program says that the state should take other people's money against their will because it knows better than they do what to do with it. So that's a little bit of underlying hypocrisy. We don't have to do that because we can do basic income in other ways. And I noticed while chatting with some people at this event that when I start to describe group income and how it works to people, I get the same questions from basic income advocates as I do from people who've never heard of basic income ever. They ask the same kinds of fairness questions. And these questions, for whatever reason, don't come up in conversations about doing basic income on a national level. Because in that situation, people are given the image of just receiving a check in the mail constantly. And that's kind of like viewing the situation from the perspective of somebody who's only taking, but not actually giving something. There are different ways of doing voluntary basic income. We already have one in Alaska. Natural resource-based basic income programs are voluntary. And land value tax, there's no human being at that end that's being exploited. In some sense, you could say that nature is being exploited, but if we take care of nature, hopefully we'll address those concerns as well. Group income is an example where individuals choose to share their own human labor capacity. And even if you can have a taxation-based system that's voluntary as well. So an example is a city sales tax. And that's voluntary because people still have the opportunity to make decisions and choices about which city they can live in. When it's at the city level, people actually have the opportunity to leave the city if they don't like. Whereas if it's on a national level, it's fairly difficult, especially for people who really need a basic income, to just get up and leave and go to another country. They almost don't really have a choice in that way. So group income is automated. And that means that once you set it up, you can just sort of set it and forget it. It works in the background, ensuring, and it tries its best to ensure in a very fair way that those who are able to monetize their income are helping everyone in the group reach that minimum amount that they've set. And beyond that, the income is returned. It's also decentralized. And that's an important component of this design. We don't want to design the system to be a way where there's a company that's some kind of business that's being created out of this, that's taking a portion of every single transaction and has the potential to manipulate things, change how it behaves, censor certain groups. We don't want any of that nonsense. And we even want to protect the group members from the group members themselves. So in other words, when somebody creates a group, at the outset, they decide what the rules of the group are, and when they invite somebody to join the group, at that point, they're actually in a financial relationship with that person. And it's very important that they don't suddenly start financially domineering those people. So there needs to be a consensus voting process on changing the rules, and group can contest that. So any basic income system, any basic income system has two requirements, no matter how you design it. There has to be sufficient monetizable value to power the basic income. If that doesn't exist, then the group won't be able to provide itself with the basic income. And in group income, that might happen for a few months out of the year. It's possible. And the second one is that there has to be the right mindset among the group members themselves. They actually have to want to participate in the system. They have to have that giving mentality of, okay, you're a human being and you're producing value, and for whatever reason, this market thing out there doesn't want to give you money for that value that you're creating. But nevertheless, I trust that, and according to the science, that if we just give you money, the good things will happen. And and the groups, of course, because they're voluntary, they can see this happen. And if suddenly something starts becoming disastrous, they have the option of leaving. So in group income, the way that it works is that there is a group here on the right of however many members, in this case there's 5 members. They, on the Ethereum blockchain, create a group which is represented by a group address. And how in Bitcoin you have an address that people want to send money to. Here people can send any kind of currency, whether it's dollars or Bitcoins, to this group address. There's some machinery that needs to, in case of fiat, convert the dollars to a digital currency. But once you do that, it's fairly simple. And this group address also represents that piece of source code that I showed in the earlier slides that handles all of the decision making of where the income goes. So the way that it works is that there are buckets here. Everybody at the start of the month starts with an empty bucket. And as income comes in, it's tagged with the name of the person that generates it. Group income prioritizes their bucket first, their basic income. So if that's $1,000 worth of income, that would be $700 worth of income if the basic income amount is $1,000. And these buckets also don't have to be trying to give people basic income. You can create these groups where the buckets are just like $50 in size, $25 in size. Maybe you want to just like spontaneously add people to a group that you created just because you like the stuff that they're doing. So what happens when you fill your bucket? Well, if you fill your bucket and you get more income, then your income automatically evenly tries to fill up the other buckets. And this process continues until everybody's bucket is full. And then if you get additional income before the month is over, it just goes directly back to you. And there's a fairness check again between the monetizers. You can envision this system kind of like, we have an Oregon Trail style game where we're moving through life, and at the end of there is some pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. But while we're going along this trail, we want to make sure that we're protected and we're safe from all the disasters. The people in the oxen can be represented as the monetizers. The people inside the wagon are the monetizers, and they can actually switch at various different points in someone's life. They might have an accident, they might no longer be able to have a job, but they can switch places. And we're going to make sure that the people who are kind of pulling the brunt of bringing income into the group are treated fairly between themselves, so that no one monetizer is shouldering all the burden. It has an algorithm to do that. So here's a sneak preview of what this will actually look like. Aaron did a great job of making these. This is the home script that we showed. When you actually start a group, it asks you to start a group, give the name, some of the rules at the outset. You can say how many members does it take to change the rules, what percentage of votes should it be required to approve a member, what has to remove a member. On the dashboard, it shows you the members and their buckets and how close they are to filling them, and it also gives you some information about how successful your group is in terms of actually meeting those goals. And it doesn't say who we're trying to avoid putting labels on people like oh, you're a monetizer and you're somehow more valuable than other people. We want to stay away from that. But for the algorithm to have a fairness check between the monetizers, needs to know how many monetizers there are. And it actually figures that out automatically by keeping track of historical incomes. And it just says how many monetizers there are in the group. And that actually gives you some useful feedback, and it also helps ensure fairness among the monetizers. If you want to add someone, this is what an experiment would do. And say you get an invite, invited to join the group. You have the ability to change some settings, like put a limit on the amount that you're going to contribute. You might say, like, I only want to help contribute up to $3,000 extra to filling up other people's buckets. Or you might be really wealthy and say, I actually don't want anybody to give me money. I don't want to have a bucket at all. So that's what the problem is. We have some code. This is, again, going to be running on top of the Ethereum blockchain. If you go to search for Group Income and locate terminals on GitHub, you can see some of our work there already. So again, everybody's valuable. The market doesn't always recognize that. Some groups want to do it. And now with Group Income, they can. Some quick acknowledgements. Some of these people were inspirational to coming up today. We unfortunately don't have any time for live questions with that, but folks on the live stream can post there. And bring up art. All right, so one thing I want to note, when we started planning this Create-A-Thon, we expected some folks from the area to show up. And we're completely blown away by the turnout we have. Not only do we have tons of folks in this area, we actually have folks from around the country, around the world. We have a number of folks that were involved here over the weekend from Germany, and people from around the country. And our next group has participants from all sorts of different locations. And they're going to be talking about, or the title of the project that they worked on over this weekend is We're All in It Together.
Thank you, Jim. I came here from Minnesota. I'm a member of the Basic Income Guarantee Minnesota, Big NM. And what we did in that group is we're all grassroots activists, and we're kind of looking for ways to connect with other grassroots organizations and figuring out how to do that. So we had the idea of kind of writing a manifesto, which we could kind of go to other organizations and try to get their support and signatures. So the idea kind of pitched on Friday is to come up with this manifesto. And the project was, how would a life look like? How would society look like if we all have a basic income? That not only kind of provides us with some physical material we can then take to other groups to get their support and kind of, increase grassroots support for basic income, not just within our little community, but also with other activist groups, but also it provides us with a vision where we want to go, and it kind of then can lead us to a path on how to reach this, what I call a more beautiful world. So our group, I don't have a pictures, but I'm originally from Germany, and it's kind of like funny that the initial members of our groups are also from Germany. We have Nicole and Anya from Berlin, and Mark from here was joining us too, and Karen and Jan was sitting in, and during the day yesterday, a number of people kind of joined us in. And this is kind of the final product we came up with. So what we kind of started is, first yesterday we were kind of looking what kind of groups would be affected, and how would they be affected by a basic income: social groups, income groups, working groups, and activists, and also how would institutions be affected if people would have a basic income. So we did a lot of brainstorming yesterday, and then this morning we actually kind of wrote out this manifesto, kind of trying to find overarching themes. And we came up with 9 different arenas for change. The title is We're All in It Together, What Does a Basic Income for All Look Like? If all of us have a basic income, how would it change? How would our relationships change? How would society change? And we identified 9 arenas for change. And this is kind of like a working document. But I'm really amazed that we kind of ended up with this beautiful document already. I think it's kind of already passing. What we identified as the major change people themselves would experience if they had a basic income is that we would be in a position of self-determination. And how would that look like? So we will not be dominated by anybody. We will be facing less competition. Instead, we will have empowered people following their calling. This will reveal our true humanity, because right now we have the societal forces that are acting on all of us, and because it's a patriarchal system, those qualities are kind of encouraged. We don't even know our true humanity yet. We will have flexibility in life to where and when to work and learn and care for our families and communities. Another very important point will be that we will have new value systems, because right now the main value is money. If everybody has enough money, then money will lose its value. So instead of society based on money and competition for resources, we would base society on people living in creative harmony with each other and all of our relations. So our focus, our value system will change, and probably will go to more a care-centered economy where that caring for ourselves, for each other and the planet will kind of really come to the front, and that's kind of where it should be too. We talked a lot about health. Right now, I feel everybody is kind of not well, because we are forced to live in a society that is based on competition and scarcity, I think it affects all of us. So health is important, and it will be a new society. If everybody has a basic income, will be a more healthy society. So the main focus of a society with a basic income will be to promote and ensure physical, mental, social, and environmental health. We have to take care of the planet too, and also more work-life balance will be possible. The next point is true democracy. If people have more time to be involved in their society, I think they will demand to be part of democracy. So we will be experienced through democracy. All institutions, and we kind of had the institution listed on the left side, and we discussed that. And it seems that most institutions will lose their relevance. I think they cannot be upkept as is. I don't think the economic system, the political system, societal system, education system, they all will kind of change. Probably most of the old institutions will lose their relevance, or at least they will need to legitimize their existence. I don't think we can upkeep those old institutions if nobody needs them anymore. And the new institutions are based on social relevance with democratic decision-making processes. The economy, we will probably transition to a real demand-driven and resource-based economy that adapts to changing conditions, and that will stay within the carrying capacity of the planet and considers new solidarity processes. And we will also have new working models and new types of entrepreneurship, and if we are employed, we will have the power to negotiate employment conditions. Another point we kind of addressed is that we will have to really kind of embrace a new ethical system that is based on transparency, accountability, and openness, and that will be the new guidelines. Education. Education will change from a dominator system where young children are being told to stand in line and be quiet, to a system where it's self-directed, society supported, and then also a lifelong education. It's not kind of transfer of your life in your youth or something, but it will, everybody will want to kind of expand their consciousness and their skills throughout their lives. And it will be self-directed, and hopefully we will have institutions so that it's society supported, and so that people will be able to realize their full potentials. Science and technology. And science and technology will provide us with solutions to real problems that people identify. Right now, science and technology are often providing us two solutions for the capitalist system, kind of going towards more efficiency so that corporations can make more profit. So, I mean, we need to kind of rethink what we're kind of doing within the sciences and within technology to kind of, and this is kind of, I have a real sense of urgency about that. We need to kind of use science and technology to find solutions for real problems. And there will be definitely an increase in original research focused on human and environmental concerns. And then decision-making processes. We're kind of all used to kind of top-down society, so we really need to kind of think about how we want to make decisions. So the new decision-making processes, we will need to kind of discuss what kind of new models we want to embrace for to make decisions. And that is our first part of our manifesto. I will bring this back to our group in Minnesota. We have a meeting next Thursday, and present that and kind of brainstorm. I think it's, I mean, we were a small group kind of putting that together, and I think to kind of making this kind of I would like to kind of subject that to a democratic process, and it's kind of little, I mean, it's kind of very condensed, and I would like to have it maybe a 2-page document, and we will want to use that to kind of go out to other grassroots organizations and talk about, a new society. And I think people are clamoring for really, big changes, big solutions, and hopefully we can kind of get grassroots support and go from there.
more of a comment, but I think it'd be great to have this in a wiki-like environment for people to come in and have it go through a process of review and inspection and flesh it out.
Yeah, it would be kind of nice if, you know, the bigger basic income community would kind of embrace this document. I mean, I don't know, I mean, it is right now what it is, but I think it would be good for all of us to have kind of something like that we can really work towards, and which also enables us to kind of outreach to other individuals and organizations. So I wouldn't know how to do that, you know, so there's a lot of kind of people who know these kind of things, so I would appreciate your help. I can give you my contact information and we can discuss what we want to do with it. I mean, I really want to have this open and, you know, that the group can have impact on that, you know. So.
Just a follow-on comment to that, it'd be really cool to flesh out each one of those sort of verticals of like education, health, and technology, and then expose this to those communities and see how education basically can affect their vertical or their group. And in doing that, not only develop this further, but spread the word of basic income.
That is a super good idea. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So one of the areas that a lot of people express interest in is how can we actually start doing some real prototypes around basic income and actually try it out, not necessarily at a full national level initially, but at some sort of small level. And this next presentation is very focused on that and very local as well. It is a basic income plan for San Francisco.
Hey everyone. So I'm very interested in how this would actually happen in the United States if we were to ever have a basic income, you know, far off at the federal level. Where would that start? Where would be the first place to go? And recently I've been thinking, why not San Francisco? We've got huge wealth inequality here. We have huge wealth here. And because we're the tech center of the United States and arguably the world, we have, we'll be some of the first places around here. Will be the first places where we'll see a lot of automation. We see self-driving cars on our streets on a daily basis. But that creates a lot of concerns along the side, both logistically and just, you know, thinking about the consequences of what would happen if we had, you know, $100 a month, $500, $1,000 a month to every resident in San Francisco. How would that work? How would that affect housing market, for instance? How would that affect our everyday lives? So I think everyone kind of has those concerns when they think about the basic income. You know, there's a lot of, well, what if this, what if that, like how would you deal with this? And so I wanted to bridge that gap a little bit and spend this weekend doing that, thinking about, well, you know, go through those concerns as much as I could and draw enough of a map so that it doesn't seem so kind of logistically and policy-wise a difficult lift. So here's a potential course for how you would do this in San Francisco. And a guiding thought that I had in terms of, you know, how to make this work is think about the homeless people that you pass. I'm sure you pass some on your way here, just when you're walking around San Francisco. How do you make it work for them? Because if it's not working for them, you know, who are we doing it for? So I focused on three central issues. First of all, we have to pay for it, so revenue. Banking is another logistical issue and a sort of a civics issue. A lot of people don't have bank accounts or don't have an easy way to have regular money transferred to them. And also housing, which no one says housing. There is the concern that if you just start giving everyone $100 a month in San Francisco, everyone's rent goes up by $100 a month. And housing is a thorny one, as we all know. So that one's tricky, but these are the issues I felt needed to be addressed if we were going to come up with a feasible plan to make this work. So, banking. All right. So probably most or everyone here has a bank account, if not multiple bank accounts, but a lot of people in the city do not have any sort of bank account. They're called the unbanked. And being unbanked sucks. If you do earn a check, then you have to either go to a payday lender or something along those lines, someone who will charge exorbitant fees just to let you access your money. You also then become a target because people know people are walking out of these places with a lot of cash or with some form of currency, so you're less safe, your money's less safe. San Francisco has been pretty good, actually. They've got a pretty good program addressing this. It's called Bank on San Francisco, which is a little strange, and the name just not the program itself. And that works with private banks to create partnerships by which you can establish a checking account with $50, $100, and you can access your money that way. And it's a lot better than the sort of ad hoc systems we have. So that's an awesome system. It's got pretty good coverage in the city of San Francisco. As you can see, Dogpatch is not doing so great. These are the banks where you can start a bank account with $100. If you lower it down to 50, a few of these dots go away, but it's still pretty good coverage. You can see there's some areas that are not well covered. Also, you need an ID to start one of these bank accounts. And not everyone in the city has any form of identification. So, how do we deal with that? So getting an ID if you have nothing, and I wanted to assume that there are people out there who they just have themselves and it goes on their back. And so how do we deal with that situation? So getting an ID, unlike, we don't really have a Bank on San Francisco program for just, getting an ID, getting some kind of establishment of who you are in the city. So right now what you have to do is you have to go to the one DMV in San Francisco. We have only one. It's not a happy place. And it also requires an ID to get an ID. You need a passport to get a driver's license, that kind of thing. There's also a City of San Francisco ID, which is a very cool program. You don't have to be a US citizen to get a San Francisco ID, but you do need an ID. So if you have no documentation at all, where you have to start, I believe, is to get a notarized form and send that to the California Office of Vital Records to request a birth certificate. And I believe that comes with some fees, and then you take that birth certificate. I think you can use that to get us a social security card, and you kind of go down the line. I don't know if anyone's ever going to bother to do that. So we have these nifty things called post offices, which are already all over the city and can be equipped just with some training and the camera and your basic setup to allow for basic ID services or comprehensive ID services. So that would be one method by which we could use these public offices that we already have to make life a lot easier for someone who just wants to get up to a basic level of citizenship in San Francisco. We do that because the DMV path is fairly onerous and not necessarily easy. Here are the post offices in San Francisco that we've got right now. I just learned, I think this one is going away soon because we need more condos. And so that's kind of a bummer. In my plan, we built a few more post offices because, again, there's some areas that are not very well served. But that would be one area that we could do it. One thing I'll touch on in a bit is that we can also use these post offices as public banks. This is a policy idea that a lot of people, I think championed by Elizabeth Warren a couple years ago. Bernie's picked it up. It's a great idea. I love it. For doing this, I was trying to stick to what we have to do at a minimum to get the basic income in San Francisco. Because we have Bank on San Francisco and it's pretty good, we could just expand that a bit. And creating a whole public banking system provide its own challenges. I still love the idea, so then toss that in if you like it, but maybe not strictly necessary for just if we're only talking about San Francisco. And I'm not worrying about the rest of the country right now, because the rest of you can do that. All right, so now here's the big thorny jungle we have to get to basic income on the other side, housing. Yeah, I need to choose some brighter colors here. All right, so this is a complicated problem. I don't know of a single solution where you just do it and you're done, other than if anyone's got like a lamp that you could rub and the genie will come out. First wish for infinite wishes, and then wish for 1 million new residences in San Francisco that are free for taking, then we're good. Otherwise, we need to think about a lot of different angles where we can approach this problem and hopefully come to some semblance of a sensible housing system in San Francisco. Because if you think about it, this city is producing value that is going all over the world. Google's value touches literally the entire globe, and a lot of that is being concentrated right here in San Francisco, and that's true for many, many companies we have here. So it's going to be a tough issue how to handle that much value in this small space. So 3 basic areas which I want to attack here. 1 is to provide for the homeless. 2 is to protect renters. And lastly, to expand some existing housing programs. And you'll notice that where I could, I worked with what San Francisco is already doing. 1, because politically that's going to be a lot easier. And also we already have those systems in place. We don't necessarily need to reinvent the wheel when we're already doing stuff that seems to be working reasonably well and maybe just needs to be expanded a bit more. So first to that first issue, providing for the homeless. This is less than a year old. In March of 2015, San Francisco launched the Homeless Navigation Center program, another oddly named thing. So what this does is it takes groups of homeless people, and it, rather nicely, I think, does account for the fact that homeless people do have communities. They might want to stick together, not just say, okay, you get a home over here, you get a home over there. So they take groups of them and provide shelter, some basic social services, and then try to move them on into affordable housing. So the first round of this was in March. They launched a second one in September, I believe. Year-to-year terms look pretty good. I did all this research yesterday, so this is not super in-depth. I haven't interviewed the people who have been through this program, but from what I read, it looks like a strong program that's having early results. Again, we're still only talking about 100, 150 people that have been affected by this so far. So this is one of those cases where we could just take this and expand it. As long as this is working, let's just turn up the volume a bit on this one. All right, protecting renters. This is probably the thorniest issue I'm going to touch on today, and was obviously a central issue to the last mayoral campaign. So right now, if you're middle class in San Francisco, you are probably under rent control, and you probably can't leave your apartment, and you are probably hoping that your landlord is not going to try to work through some of the exceptions and loopholes that we have to get you out of rent control, essentially, or to jack up your rent. Because there's all this value that wants to be in the city, and if you're making like $60K a year, your landlord could be better. So we have certain rather strange rent control exemptions, which I don't know the history of, but you can imagine are sort of involve political shenanigans of yesteryear. Rent control does not apply to buildings built after 1979. We have no idea why that would make any sense. I'd say we should get rid of it. Landlords can up your rent if they provide improvements to your property. There are reasons we can imagine why this would be a good idea. But the thing is, they can already write that off on their taxes. So they're kind of getting a double whammy there. So You could argue to just have that eliminated, say the tax write-off's enough. Maybe in certain cases, we do allow them to up the rent a little bit for improvements on your building, but not often cases the renter doesn't really have much of a say in this. There's also something we have called inclusionary zoning. This is a good policy that San Francisco already has. It's that for new developments, 15% of that has to go to affordable housing. So that's kind of the counterweight to the, after 1979, no rent control. But the thing with inclusionary zoning is if the landlord does not want to deal with that, if the developer, and often these are very big firms developing these big condo buildings, they can just pay a fee and get around that. And it sucks for affordable housing. So I'd say as much as I'm sure the city enjoys collecting those fees, I think it would be better to just have the affordable housing. So I'd say we get rid of that possibility for them. Evictions are, there's a lot of laws around evictions. I didn't wade too far into that territory, but the main point is that if you want to prevent an eviction, you usually have a narrow time frame. So your eviction gets served, you've got maybe 30 days to file an official complaint with the city. If you don't do that, well, too bad, you're getting kicked out. And also, most renters don't really know what the eviction laws. They'll have to go find a lawyer. It's usually a whole long process. It makes it very hard even for a wrongful eviction case to be overturned. So many landlords know this, they can exploit the system. And so what I would suggest is to have evictions be pre-cleared by the city. So instead of relying on the renter to figure out what the hell's going on, get something in with the city, see if they can maybe make an argument that works to let them stay in their apartment, just have the city deal with that first because they're prepared to do that. They know the laws. And then when you get your eviction notice, then it's more of a done deal, but hopefully fewer eviction notices. The last one I'll throw in there is you introduce the right of first refusal. This is something they have in Washington, D.C. It's something that's been tossed around for San Francisco. This basically says that if your apartment is going on the market, you get first dibs to buy it. So if your landlord wants to sell your place, then you can buy it for the house for the price that it's being negotiated at. So, dang. Sorry. So I am way over time here. Okay. All right. I'm going to race through this last part. So expand existing housing programs. For this, I'm going to just skip it, absorb all that text magically with your brains. Revenue. So this last part. How do we fund the basic income? We've got some major revenue sources in San Francisco or potential revenue sources. One is property taxes. We get a ton of money from property taxes. Those are difficult to raise because of Prop 13. And so those require a popular vote, but they are a major source of money. We don't have an income tax, but if we did, we could raise a bunch of money that way because we have a lot of very, very rich people. All right, so here are some potential revenue sources. These would need to be done by a popular vote, by a Prop 13. The land tax is very popular among basic income people because one, it removes the incentive for speculation. And so there's a lot of land that's just being sat on in San Francisco because people are just waiting for the prices to go up some more so they can sell it at an even higher value. Land tax probably removes the incentive for that. There's also a lot of second homes here. People like to have their second luxury condo somewhere in the city. We could isolate those and raise the property taxes on those. We could also just raise the property tax that because prices here are so expensive, middle-class landowners would find that rather regressive. So that's not my favorite one. We could also introduce an income tax or a sin tax, which is taxing things that are bad for you, like alcohol, tobacco, marijuana. Probably shouldn't be legal. All right, here's all that in one place. And then that's going away. So that's how you do it. Thank you for listening.
Just so folks know, well, first, hopefully all of you will stick around. We'll have to first want to chat more about this. We are going to put all the material online, so in case you didn't realize every single one that's done members will have another chance to actually see them. And then also, if it's, I don't know if it's all right, so I'm guessing that most folks in the room here are, if not a strong supporter, at least interested and intrigued by the idea of basic income. But there are a lot of folks out across the country and world who may not be. So this next group is trying to explore things more from that lens. And they're going to be talking about 100 objections to basic income.
So we don't have slides, and we'll merge to them. I don't know what you're here, but we decided to do a little debate prep for the future campaigns, ballot initiatives, legislative bills that might be going through state houses, maybe on the federal level, around basic income, universal income. By the way, I think we focus mainly on universal basic income as opposed to smaller scale questions of dividends. But this is a big idea, and all big ideas end up being debated. They end up facing resistance from people who give them sometimes a fair critique, sometimes an unfair critique. People who come at them with various ideologies or from different interest groups. So we wanted to examine all of that and see if we could come up with something that would be useful for these campaigns and for anyone who's trying to win over others to the concept of basic income. So we brainstormed 100 potential objections. We've got a Google sheet that we'll share around and you can all look at. It's into the live stream, by the way. And we went through and tagged it sort of based on interest groups, based on motivations, based on type. And from that, we sort of put out themes and wrote quite an extensive memo. I think what do we have? 18 pages, something like that. Yeah, it turned out to be pretty long. So we encourage you to don't just listen to this presentation, but go and read it. We dive deep on some stuff. And you'll find that you won't have to reinvent the wheel, because we've already done the background and through some of these strategic points and presenting some counter arguments for the largest objections. So we came up with a bit of a taxonomy to understand different types of objections. There's we shouldn't, we can't, and we won't. We shouldn't are people who think that it's just a bad idea, that it would make things worse. They object to it on principle. These are sort of the hardest to win over, but it's going to be mainly an intellectual, ideological fight. We can't are people that think it would be great if we could pull it off, but are skeptical about the procedures, about implementing it. And we won't are people who think that yes, it's a good idea, and yes, it could work, but there's never going to be the political will to put it in practice. So we think that the we can'ts and we won'ts are probably where we want to start as a movement, because these are people that, if we could convince of the vitality of our proposals, they would join us and be a part of our movement. The we shouldn't, depending on where they come from, are going to be a little trickier, and some of them will probably be pulled to the end. They'll always vote against us, but we still need to understand where they're coming from, because we can't win some of them over. So then we went and talked about some of the fears and motivations that were behind a lot of these objections.
pull out some common themes. Francis, do you want to talk about it or should I? Okay, great.
This was the fun part, I thought, thinking about what are the bigger ideas behind the objections that we saw, our 100 objections. We held, well, there's the I don't know if they're all, you can see the list. The big ones definitely were fears about what would happen if this was implemented. And some of those are practical, some of them are just implementation challenges. Some of them are more like identity fears about what would life look like. And some of that, you know, has, if robots take your job, that's not basically mankiind's fault, you know. But I think that we're going to be asked to account for some of those fears as we make the case for basic income. So, another big one. We called it virtue of work, but you could also call it the Protestant work ethic. We have hardwired your identity as Americans that you display your virtue through gainful employment. And that
Calvinism.
what was that?
Calvinism.
Calvinism, yeah. I mean, it's fascinating because I don't think anyone is a Calvinist anymore. I think that maybe there's some Calvinists, but a lot of us unknowingly subscribe to Calvinist Puritan beliefs. And that's something I think we ought to be really clear as we make our cases for basic income. So yeah, you can, I mean, these are all detailed and lovely language in our report, which I think we're going to take a look at. But I think those are the big ones. Does anyone want to talk about the interest rates?
So we try to go through the different groups that we might have to engage or we engage with, and try to go through some of the objections that we thought each group might come up with. We were as varied as racist, nationalists, and xenophobes to actual techno-libertarians and environmentalists and some of the more mainstream folks. That'll probably be some of our bigger challenges because they're more institutionally based and have been doing organizing or have you know, kind of created this situation we're in now to a large extent. So we tried to be as encompassing as we could and came up with some arguments for each. You know, like with labor unions, they advocate for great social justice causes, but they are weary of their membership and allowing for free riders into programs that they advocate for, but people benefit from that didn't actually work for it. So, but there's some good movement there. You know, he's fighting for $15 minimum wages there. We say that we got to expand that further. And Andy Stern, who used to head SAU, is going to actually publishing a basic income book next year. That'll hopefully get some labor unions to start thinking about this. But I think, you know, as we went through some of these, a lot of them just aren't aware of the basic income. And it's going to either be a shock or a brilliant idea to some of them. We'll try to lay out some of the key arguments for each that you might be faced with, and then some of the responses you could give to them, and hopefully start to educate and bridge that gap. Excuse me.
Well,
Yeah, you want to add
well, here we wrote a bunch of major objections and counter arguments, and we have two groups in the memo: the major objections, and then with some very specific counter arguments, and then we have I think 4 or 5 here examples of some of the other 90 or so that we came up with that are more niche objections. You won't hear them very often, but they will come up, and so it's good to be prepared for them. Just take a random one of the top ones to answer. Like some of them, the answers are very straightforward. Some of them wrote some snarky answers. Isn't this just communism or socialism? And well, you know, Milton Friedman and F.A. Hayek, two of the most important capitalist libertarian philosophers, supported a basic income, whereas the person best known for saying those who don't work don't eat is Lenin.
So just remember here that we're talking about basic income. The supporters are on the side of Milton Friedman and F.A. Hayek, and if you're against it, you're on the side of Vladimir Lenin. But please continue calling me a communist. So that's the more snarky ones, but some of them are more, and that one deserves snark because it's not really serious. It's a way of, it's more of a personal attack. It's not a serious objection, but we have some more serious answers to the other ones.
So I'm going to give you another look at our spreadsheet here because it's long. Yeah, so we hope everyone will come in and take a look at our report. It's titled 100 Objections to UBI Memo for Strategists and Supporters. And we'll send out the links that everyone can look at. Maybe we'll post some medium and some pretty pictures when this is all done. We're still, tweaking, editing. It kind of came together in a weekend, and we're pretty proud of doing this long in this short of time. But had some great thoughts just come together. So another thing that we could use some help on, if anyone wants to do some follow-up with us on this, is we have this spreadsheet. It is, not very well organized. We're the first to admit. If anyone is good at spreadsheets and databases, I think we're mostly writers and strategists and don't like looking at spreadsheets all day. But if you do, please talk to us, and maybe you can help us figure out a way to tag this in a way that's more searchable and useful to people. And yeah, any questions?
I say we know that everybody loves a sequel in America, so maybe the next one of these will publish 100 additional objections. So we continue to take feedback.
Yeah, we didn't do it in the spreadsheet here. As Tom started to proliferate out of our control, but we do touch on maybe not antidotes, but yeah, like ways that you can smooth over some of those feelings and anxieties that people have in our report, either around specific motivations that people have, or around specific interest groups, or around specific arguments that bubble up out of these fears. So, take a look at that, and we would love to hear if you've got suggestions of this is where we miss.
So yeah, when we our section on the specific interest groups, we do a much better job of that, like how the interest group, why many of them would object, and then ways to counter those objections. I think we did a pretty good job in that one. But you're right, and I didn't really think of it at the time. When we went through the motivation and the fears, I think we did a pretty good job of outlining and describing a lot of them. But you're right, we didn't include enough of how to get around those fears. And if anybody wants to like step in there and help edit and add those, we would greatly appreciate it. Although one thing I would say with some of them, particularly in the shouldn'ts group, and coming up with their values and identities, we can come up with ways to try to counter them, but to a large extent, if you're going against somebody's identities and they're over 25, honestly, it's going to be very hard, possibly impossible, to counter that. And so a lot of times what you're doing when you're debating, especially in public, you're not going to convince the other person. What a lot of times we're trying to do is convince people who still haven't made up their mind, either people who haven't heard of it yet or people under the age of 25 and they're still working out their identities.
So I find that often when I start talking to someone who hasn't heard about it without listening, the questions usually move to math pretty quickly. How are we going to pay for this? What will it look like given my current income? So this next group is attempting to answer at least some of those questions with a basic income
Yeah, so we spent most of this weekend, actually Kean spent most of the weekend pulling data from pretty much every source imaginable. We really wanted to be able to give everyone the aggregate numbers, and out of that, we ended up building essentially 3 different applications that do very similar things in terms of being able to plug in a minimum income, which is just a variation on universal basic income, that, or negative income tax, which is variation on universal income, which basically says if you're taxing people to provide them with a basic income above a certain threshold, their tax obligations will become higher than their actual income, so it just ends up canceling out. So you may as well formulate it as some people get money, some people give money, and once you cross a certain threshold, you're probably giving money. So we have a few applications on here. This basically our main accomplishment is getting all the data onto this web page, and from there we will be able to refine and improve these tools that allow you to basically plug in whatever the income is, see how many households are actually impacted by it, and what the cost is and how those compare to existing cash transfer programs, such as Social Security, Medicare, unemployment. For example, this is a $5,000 minimum income. It says it would impact 22 million households and be about the same cost as current unemployment benefits. To give you an example of where we're trying to go, we actually have this graph here, but I'm going to just draw this out because I think it tells you a bit of a clearer picture of how income works in the United States right now. Can people see this pretty well? Okay, so at the bottom here, we have the wage earning population from the 0th percentile to the 100th percentile, and a logarithmic scale of income. So we start at $1,000 here, and this is $100 million. What's interesting about income distribution in the United States is that it's actually super exponential. So if we connect all these dots through here, 51% of Americans make less than $30,000 a year. And then this is basically a straight line of 1 million, 10 million, up to the top 135 or so earners that earn an average of $86 million a year. What the tool that we're building basically will allow you to do is play with this line right here and say, what is your minimum income? How much does this cost? Now, obviously, this only includes actual wage earners, so people that are unemployed or not working are not included in this number, but you can obviously extend along and say, hey, here's this other chunk of the population that needs these services, needs income, and we account for there. So those numbers are available, you're plugging them in, we're trying to build this out, but this is a hard number that you can calculate pretty easily and say, hey, this is how much this program here would cost. And then the other number that you get to play with eventually is we plugged in the current income tax for a single earner household. And as you can see, that it is this purple line right here, which it looks like the rich are getting taxed pretty heavily here, but remember that the values here are logarithmic. So this little space here is worth like 1,000 times what this space is, even though it's bigger. So a much more intuitive version of that, let's just pretend this is logarithmic, but it's totally not. Is basically you just draw this tax line. And the area under here represents the amount of money that the government collects in income tax. And basically by pulling out the sections of this and how we use this in the budget, which we've now extracted and put into this application, you can play with this number and play with this number and get them to match up. And out of that, you basically get a basic income tax policy that fits within the existing frameworks of how our federal government funds itself. So yeah, keep an eye on bettertaxes.org. We're trying to keep on improving this over the next couple months until we have something that actually is polished enough we'd like to share with people. For the time being, you can plug numbers into there, and you can move some of the sliders, and some of it works pretty well, and some of it might pop out weird numbers that aren't accurate at all.
So did you only look at the modeling and then you came to the minimum guarantee as like step one? Or
Yeah, so you can basically draw on here, like, the minimum income is basically drawing a flat line here. If you're doing a universal basic income, what you're actually just drawing is a line that goes in parallel to this, all the way across, all the way up. And you're still eventually going, I mean, if income tax is how we're funding our government right now. Now, that's like a really broad assumption. I know a lot of people have a lot of different ideas on how we could fund this and where that money could come from in the future. But for the time being, like 60% of our federal budget comes from income tax. And a similar amount of our federal budget actually goes to cash transfer programs. So depending on how you account for this, really it's highly variable depending on your political philosophy. But eventually essentially what happens is this number subtracts from this number. So if you're mapping the green line on top of this and you're subtracting away from it, it cancels out anyways. So it doesn't make sense to me to model it that way, because you're basically ending up with extra couple lines of the graph that you're going to end up erasing or subtracting after the fact. Like somebody's making $86 million and has a $30,000 guaranteed basic income, is going to have a significantly higher tax obligation than that $30,000. So they aren't going to ever see that money. So yeah. Fun fact: the person who introduced this type of income first, or basic income first, in the United States in actual policy proposal was Richard Nixon.
I could just make an argument for doing it the other way, the basic income way. Because you have it where a line that is the base that follows upwards needs to be basic income minus the extra taxes that they would be paying. Then that would be a calculator that somebody could go in and figure, okay, I'm making $46,000 a year. Would I be a net beneficiary or a net payer? Just doing it this way, it doesn't show them that, even though they might end up actually being a net beneficiary, or the net may not hurt them. But
yeah,
see what I'm saying?
One of the next steps that we wanted to do for this was for somebody to actually be able to plug in their income and see where they would fall in on this graph. And so if you made, if our minimum income is $10,000 and you plug in your income, you get your line dropped in right here, and you see that you are neutral. If you're above that, you're going to have some level of tax. And obviously, you could start drawing this red line all the way out here. Like you could say until you're making $50,000 a year, you don't pay any income tax. So like there can be gaps here where you're neutral, or you are net paying into the system, or if you're over here, you're net paying out. But effectively, the numbers work out the same way.
When we did that, when you end up kind of driving a self-sufficient model that the manifesto is really trying to help us get away from, I don't know if there'd be a way to do that with something like that. It's something you're punching in, what are the benefits and costs to you? If there'd be a way to pop up, here are the benefits and costs that benefit all of us if we have a society where things are able to allow us to do more. Something like that that would remind them that the basic income is about manifesto, about something than just monitoring something as an American.
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea here is basically just to see how this plays out with the existing numbers. It's definitely, like in terms of implementation and framing, extremely conservative implementation. Especially since it's working exclusively within the statutory envelope, exclusively working with numbers that already exist in our current tax code. But obviously, like once you get in there, you can design a much more progressive. Like this is not a particularly progressive tax code. In fact, this line I've drawn is probably less progressive than our existing tax code. But you could draw a tax line that basically looks like, that, and you're just taking exclusively the higher earners, and that would, as long as the area under the curve is the same size, you're working with the same amount of money. So there's lots of ways to formulate it, and I think the application is just to give people an idea of what that
looks like in practice and how that would impact them. And ideally, you could use this as a formulation for like actually talking a little bit more intelligently about tax reform that goes beyond like, do we move the top marginal rate from 40% to 55%? It's like, well, what if we move the top marginal rate like all the way up here, which is like 90% or 99%, or you even cap income so that any income over a certain amount, you just draw this line right here and you say, all this money is going to fund poverty programs. All those are, hugely, tons of variables, tons of things to play with. And ideally, we'll get there to a point that like anybody could be able to plug that in and figure it out.
All right, so initially had a couple of video projects, and the first one's up next. Mapped. Map out.
So most of you probably know what this is because I was moderating yesterday. I'm just going around asking everybody to share their ideas on this. In an attempt to kind of put it all together and summarize it for us. All right. And I'm going to be plugging on. We could also just centralize it. Okay. Yeah. In San Francisco, California, a lot of people here who are really used to get to a basic income, which is the concept that everybody is giving enough money every month to provide for basic human necessities. And my project is to interrupt them and ask them about it sucks wealth to the very top so that if you have the yours, there is the richer, the technique for basic income is not a strategy for building. As the bottom issue, ultimately in the world have that and they should be recognized for to everybody have to work and then
money in order to subsist. And so with basic income, people can choose how they spend their money and work on more creative endeavors that are maybe less monetizable, or be an artist or a musician.
And kids are little, we tell them all that they can be anything they want to be when they grow up. But that's actually a lie because you can only be what you want to be if you have
the money to support yourself. Basic income turns that lie into a truth because it gives people to support themselves until they can be what it is that they want to be.
To me, basic income is ultimately about empowering everybody to be in control of their destiny. The notion of freedom, it's something that's especially valued in America. But when you look at most people's lives, there actually isn't freedom in their work.
I think you need the freedom to say no, and you don't have this freedom of saying no today because everyone needs to work to make a living, and I think
I didn't know you so I could do that while I was going.
I'm almost doing it.
I want to see it twice. See, okay, I know where we're at. Okay. Get a little teaser for the rest of it. Right?
I think you need the freedom to say no. And you don't have this freedom of saying no today because everyone needs to work to make a living, and I think everybody should be able to make a living because they're human beings. That's why we need the basic income, because it creates the freedom, the real freedom that enables you to say no.
Having a job is important, but really at the foundation of having a job is having a role in society.
What we should do is work, of course, and contribute to societies, but in a way we find meaningful.
That's what basic income to ensure a basic level of economic stability to all people.
Studies have shown now the most effective way to get people out of poverty is to just give people money.
People make better decisions about how to use their money than somebody who doesn't even know them, like some government entity. Some people might not need food stamps. Some people might need to pay for their education, maybe a startup or a business.
We need to figure out solutions to climate change. Take a really hard look at racism, police brutality, violence in our society. And I think in order to solve these problems, we need the energy of all the people who are currently trapped in jobs where they're not producing anything except for profit.
Basic income can liberate us from the obsession that activity is a good in and of itself, no matter what that activity is, as long as it generates money. But I won't go for that. I don't think that's true. I think it's obvious to everyone that it's not true.
Let's just get all the BS out of the way of the menial daily labor and the puritanical holdovers.
I support the basic income because it would be the first step towards system change.
So people will not live in a state of constantly fearing losing their job, losing their security.
There's this constant fear, really evident throughout the workplace, that if I don't send an email to my boss at 3 in the morning, they're going to think that I'm slacking off. It uses so much energy to hold on to that amount of fear that when it comes to trying to do something positive, there's no time.
People say, oh, I don't have the time, I have to earn my money, I have to deal with my daily problems. But when they have their basic needs covered with basic income, this argument doesn't count anymore because now they have the time if they want.
Basic income enables democracy. In a democracy, you need to be able to participate in governance, discussion, just getting involved. And you can only do that to the extent that you have the time and the resources to do so.
We are rapidly heading towards a future that's going to look very different.
Technology is changing our world faster than ever. On one hand, it's making our processes more efficient. On the other hand, it's resulting in unemployment and instability in people's lives.
As we use technology to automate work that humans are doing, every human should feel some of that benefit, some of that economic freedom.
Maybe having a future where people don't have to work 40 hours a week.
So we need some system that's built into our economy so that automatically, as the tide rises, all boats, not just the yachts, rise with it.
The future of work with the automation will come and will not support the people by itself.
If the people that own the automation just receive all the rewards of it, there's no way that society can ever keep up to that.
Computerization is going to hollow out the middle income of America. This means that all jobs that are routine will be computerized or robots will be deployed to do these jobs.
That's interesting being here with all the talk about robots, but I think we should be doing this with or without robots.
It's basically it's really unacceptable that we now have enough stuff but are not distributing it to everyone such that their basic needs are met.
I live in San Francisco where there's 6,500 homeless people, and that should not be happening in a city of such immense, incredible wealth.
A lot of people will reject basic income because they think no one should get something for nothing. I would just say, why not? If we're going to increase happiness, if we're going to increase social stability.
I love the concept of basic income because it makes sure that everybody has a place to start.
We live in a time here in the US where we are so politically and ideologically divided that we can't get anything done, we can't agree on anything. Well, I believe that universal basic income is not left or right, it's forward. This is something that we can all agree upon.
everyone from Milton Friedman to MLK agrees it's the right thing to do. In Milton Friedman's case, it's the just thing to do in that it decreases the complexity of government, can cut bureaucracy, and from MLK's perspective, it's the way to end the cycle of poverty and economic injustice.
This is a simple, in terms of administration, quite cheap, cost-effective way to dramatically reduce poverty. The benefits from that, it would be enormous.
Basic income allows us to stop competing with each other, start cooperating with each other.
With a diminished sense of competition and a greater sense of like we're all in this together and we're all looking out for each other, people would be able to contribute a lot more in terms of community.
It just would, I think, create more compassion and less inequality.
We have decided that people have a right not to be property, and we can decide that people have a right not to live in poverty.
The last person to be asked. This is big. So what's one thing about basic income that probably hasn't been touched on yet?
I think that it's achievable. It's not like a future of futurism. It's like a very like real world achievable goal.
Positivity. Yes.
Awesome. The music makes it go. These are little mix.
Alright. Y'all hear me okay still? Alright. So,
Is there a central place for links for all of the links to all of the various parts?
we are going to be sending around a web page after we wrap up here that has everything that's all the videos and documents, so everyone will have a chance to check it out again and share it with friends. All right, so next up, as I mentioned, we had people coming from all over this event. And some of the folks who came all the way from Germany and have been running a program over there called, well, the translation is My Basic Income. And it's a raffle program. Well, why did I let them say it? But basically, they want to bring the idea here that they have there, here to the US, and have had the people folks. It's a mix of German folks and the folks.
All right.
Hello. How's everyone doing today? Pretty all right? Yeah. You got enough sun today? You've been stuck inside all day? All right, so as we had the introduction there, we were inspired by what Nico and Johannes and Mira had done before, where they actually just crowdfunded basic income. They just said, you know, let's do this today. Let's get real people, real basic income, and see how it would impact their actual lives. So we were inspired by that to do exactly the same thing here. And so, actually, before we get into this too much here, we started this crowdfunding page, and I would implore all of you to go to it now. So should we launch this right now?
Yeah!
So we're launching the campaign, it looks like. You can find a really quick URL at mybasicincome.org. That will take you there. And all of you should ignore everything I say and go and donate $100 or $5 or $10 right now. And then it doesn't matter if you hear what I say, we'll tell you about it. So yeah, so our goal is to obviously to crowdfund basic income for real people. And we want to do that so we can actually see what it's like for people when they have it. Everyone is going to have an individual story. In a country of 300 million people, we're going to have at least that many stories. So I actually want to ask everyone here, have you personally thought about what you would do if you had basic income? And I'll actually, right now, take, what's that?
Social Security is basic income.
All right, so,
yeah, right.
So then,
frame it that way. What would you do if you had Social Security when you were like 20 years old? And then for the rest of your life. So actually, let's take 10 seconds right now. Everyone, close your eyes or do whatever. Just think, what would you do if you had basic income right now for the next year? Got some ideas there? Anybody has some ideas? What do you have an idea about?
Start like 10 businesses.
10 businesses? Like what businesses? Yeah. And like any particular groups you want to serve or help? Nice. Help needy people. Right? That's a good reason. Did you ever read that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you thinking?
Well, I've got a kid on the way in like a month, so I hang out with him, and I would do a bunch of writing.
Spend more time being a parent and write. These are like the real stories that we want to enable people to have, so that we can tell those stories, so that we can help everyone else here's work in popularizing this idea, making it visceral, making it tangible. And that's so.
Come on, refresh, please. All right.
So yeah, so we launched that. That's good. What else do we have here? Yeah, let's do this video. It's going to get a little personal.
When I was growing up, I would get ready in the morning and I would get in the car. My mom would give me her geometry textbook so that I could quiz her on her homework while she drove me to school. She was raising me herself. She was working 2 jobs and she was working to finish her bachelor's degree. She would work at a grocery store to get discounted food, and she worked at my school to cover tuition. And there were just never enough hours in the day. She ended up having to choose between helping me with my homework and doing her own homework. In the end, she chose me, but she never had to finish her bachelor's. What if she didn't have to choose? What if nobody had to choose? What if everyone had the freedom and security to reach their full potential and follow their dreams? There's a way to make this happen, and more people are talking about it. It's called universal basic income. Universal basic income means every citizen gets an income to cover their basic needs. It's for everyone, and it's unconditional. You know who loves basic income? Martin Luther King, Milton Friedman, and even the chief economist of Citibank. But there are a lot of questions about how this would really play out. Would people keep working? Would they start more businesses? Would they get lazy? Or would they be more generous? We should find out, right? So let's try it. We can start with just one person. My name is Cameron Ottens. I'm a Lyft driver and I do freelance marketing for social enterprises. And me and my friends are starting the My Basic Income project. We're raising $15,000 to give one person a basic income of $1,250 a month. If we reach our goal, we'll launch a raffle to choose the recipient. It doesn't matter whether you donate to the campaign or not. Anyone can sign up for the raffle. We'll ask everyone who signs up for the raffle to tell us what they would do with their basic income, so we can see how basic income would change their lives. And if we pass our goal, every dollar past that is going to go towards another basic income for another person. So donate to our campaign, share this with your friends, and don't forget to dream big.
Whoa! Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I'd just like to thank the team from Germany who basically did this in Germany and was really instrumental in helping us get it off the ground. I think, yeah, big round of applause. And lastly, I think we'd like to ask for your help in sharing this. So if you have contacts or if you have people who would be willing to blog about this, who have more reach than just us alone, we'd love your help. Please reach out to us and please just share it with your network.
this, tell your friends, families, post it on social media. And hopefully we'll be able to continue updating you on how this develops in the future.
Everybody say the URL. 1, 2, 3.
MyBasicIncome.org.
I just wanted to say, I moved to San Francisco in January, and I called up, I looked on the internet for, basic income and how do I get involved, and I got referred to one person back there. And now, look at us, we got a whole room full of people all making it happen. So just think about, we talk about exponential growth curves. This thing is moving really fast, and I think we can all be pretty damn excited about it. So, yay.
More examples about what you would do with your business? You have a question?
So one of the things that the German guys do so well is great storytelling in the media. Have you guys thought about sounds like you do PR on the side, which is awesome. Have you thought much about the media plan sort of moving forward and what's in it?
So we've been brainstorming a bunch of different groups that we've reached out
Mike.
to.
Yeah. So we brainstormed a bunch of different groups to reach out to. And also, anyone in this room has any contacts, we're going to be bothering Scott and everyone who helped organize this as well. Obviously, I'm going to be calling every single person on my phone that I know. And every person that they know, I'll tell them to talk to. I would for all do the same. And again, a lot, it's, $2 times a million people is a lot more. So as far as media plans, basically, we'll be reaching out to all the organizations that we have contacts with. I would like to talk to you, if you have a feeling you might know some organizations. Would be a great person to talk to anyway. And then we'll get press releases out to them. We do a launch here right now, so it's kind of like soft, but also just hit the ground running. And then the campaign is actually ending just after Christmas, so January 15th, so that people have enough time to go on holiday, come back, and then we can hit them with all sorts of media, and remind them it's almost over. And if you have better ideas, I'd love to call.
Yeah, and a lot of the storytelling about basic income will happen in the raffle process. So when we reach our goal and we hold the raffle, then everyone who enters the raffle will be telling us a story. They'll be telling us about what they would do if they won the raffle. And we've had so many amazing ideas talking to the German team about the ways they've collected information about how many people are saying they would go back to school, how many people are saying they would contribute some of their basic income to somebody else's basic income. How many people are talking about their kids or starting a business. And one of the things we're going to do is invite people when they enter to think about whether they would tell their story to the media if they won as well.
Really love what you guys are doing. And sorry for forgetting to include MyBasicIncome and Scott Sands' Patreon promise campaign and know about yours, but